Yeah, I'm a little bit later than I planned because I joined this call on Discord where there was someone I wanted to speak to. Hadn't spoken to them, at least voice to voice, in a little while. So I was talking to them for about half an hour, a little over half an hour. And then this other person joined in, and it was nice. And then somebody else came, and it kind of got a little annoying. And then they left, and then someone else came in, and they kind of started to have everything revolve around. So I was like, all right, let me just exit and do my usual routine. But yeah, we have one full day before the election. It's generally a thing where most of the time I don't talk about news related things, right? Um, During streams because it's kind of, I don't know, I guess I have a thing where I just kind of compartmentalize them, right? You do a video, that's the video. Sometimes I might mention some specific video I'm planning on doing just to give like an update on it, like the status of it. But I can't help but feel sort of sentimental, I guess you could say. Like I just want to mark the occasion. Um, it's really wild to think that this election cycle, this presidential election, technically started almost 2 years ago when Trump announced he was running shortly after the midterms wrapped up. And in the months that followed, right, we had Ramaswamy and Haley and Pence, and actually, I take that back. Pence didn't show up until the summer, but we had multiple other people, Christie, like start popping in, and there was some debate on the Democratic side as to whether Biden was going to seek another term, because there were comments that had been made supposedly during 2020 where he referred to himself as a transitional candidate who was just here to stop Trump, and then he would, go and get in a rocking chair or whatever. But in what was that, April, he announced, right? He made it the anniversary of his 2020 announcement back in 2019. And a lot of Democrats from the time that he announced, not Democrats as in ones who were, all the congressional ones, they totally bought into his nonsense. They were all ready to go in on the man that very obviously has some kind of mental faculty problems. They were all ready to do it. They were all of them lined up behind him. They were enthusiastically backing him. It really made me sick to my stomach, and it was even worsened by the fact that he had three primary challengers. Marion Williamson, the one I like the most. Uh, then you had RFK Jr. and Dean Phillips, and of course RFK Jr. eventually ended up getting out of the Democratic primary because he saw how rigged it was. But what was crazy to me was that you had this primary where there were multiple other people running against Biden. And it was one of the clearest examples of why there is something wrong with the United States' political system, where you had major networks like Fox, like CNN, like CBS, who just would not give airtime to his challengers because they were all secretly doing the bidding of the two-party system. Like Fox would only cover the challengers if they wanted to, because they're pro-Republican, so any Democratic challengers are going to get some, they're going to prop them up to help with their whole, Biden is the worst president of all time narrative. And scary enough, you actually had people who bought into this stuff and just, they a lot of voters ended up not knowing there was even a primary because they just didn't talk about it. They act like it wasn't going on, and they went out of their way to just not not let people know of their options and their the choices that they had. They really just seemed like, well, Biden is the incumbent president, so I guess we all have to support and back him. And if you don't, well, if you don't want to support him, then I guess you'd rather have the Republican. They really backed everyone into a corner. But as the Republican cycle went on, different people would see surges, right? And it's amazing how much someone can destroy themselves, right? Because DeSantis, if you would ask me of any Republican in the last 4 years who could theoretically be the next Republican to win the White House after Trump, I would have said DeSantis, like that. But in this campaign that first of all, I think he announced too late to even start. He sat there and really fumbled and didn't know quite what he was running for, other than people said that he was a good governor. So I guess that means he'll make a good president, but he's not a good campaigner. And in the time between him announcing that he was going to run and, you know, getting out, he was relentlessly attacked by Trump. Trump buried him in critiques and criticisms and all types of just rebukes. And then, we have this Republican primary where, yeah, the different GOP candidates, they get acknowledged. They're not like the Democrats. They get acknowledged by CNN, they get acknowledged by all the other networks. But the voters very clearly just want Trump. They let Trump do pretty much whatever he wants. He's able to dodge going to any of the primary debates, which was like a notoriously insane thing to me. I'd never seen a serious contender for president be like, "Well, I'm polling so well, I can just skip all of the meetings of the candidates." But this crazy self-absorbed thing worked out because the voters, by the time we got to Iowa, it was down to him and Haley, and by the time the second contest was over, the one in New Hampshire, uh, I said the race was over. Like, she had no chance. And I said that because New Hampshire at the time was seen as this state that had a lot of independents, a lot of people who, were like people who, even if they identified as Republican, were seen as being more moderate than the rest of the party. So when she lost that state, and she lost it very handily by about 10 or so points, that was the moment where it just became clear to me that, yeah, Trump's going to be the nominee. There's no point to any of these other people. And of course, I will always remember when Haley came to, I think it was Orange County, and I drove over there and got to see her in person, and how lame I thought it was that, her appearance was all hyped up, and she even had those people that were back in Trump, like all protesting her and sitting up there with their signs and screaming stuff, which, they have the right to do, but I thought it was so pointless because she wasn't going to win. But I said, hey, it would be so cool to see her in person. And then all she did was talk for like, you wait for an hour, right? She talks for about 20 minutes, answers no questions, takes pictures with like 4 or 5 people, and then dashes out of there. It was so lame. I am in that disappointed in a politician's public appearance. And I said there are only 2 presidential candidates I have ever seen in person: Bernie and Haley. And God, what a contrast it was. But yeah, after New Hampshire, Haley was done. Of course, she stayed in the race for a little bit longer until one of the Super Tuesdays, but she had no chance after that. And then on the Democratic side, Biden swept through most of the primaries with no issue and got renominated. Trump was renominated as well, but before the convention, right, we had the crazy one of the scariest things I've seen recorded before, which was the the shooting. And I was so disturbed. Like, I've always had this belief that people at their core are decent, in the sense that, maybe most people don't donate to stuff. Maybe most people don't like go out of their way to help someone, but it's not like if they don't like you, they're going to just be praying for your demise. But no, I saw that on Twitter. I saw that across all of social media. It was really scary, and it showed you that the divisions in the U.S. are just getting worse and worse. And I've maintained since then that I'm glad that he, didn't get injured in some way that, and anything worse happened than what it did. I wish it hadn't happened, but I'm glad that he was able to recover seemingly fully from the experience. A few days after that, we had the RNC, and the 3 people I think the most of that didn't run throughout this whole election cycle to where I even have had their channels in my featured channel section. I'm probably going to end up changing that sooner than later. I just haven't figured what I want to put there in place of them. But the three people I thought the most of who didn't run, but who I thought would have a way bigger role in this cycle were MTG, right, the Georgia Congresswoman, everyone's favorite dog killing governor Kristi Noem, and fake but will run in all the elections she can take, Kari Lake. And I said it's so insane to me that all three of them started this year off where I had a belief, and I wasn't crazy for thinking this. You can go back and read old materials. There was a belief that one of those three could be Trump's running mate. With MTG, she was described as Trump in heels, right? She adopted many of his positions. Just again, following in his footsteps, acolyte type thing. With Noam, she obeyed all of Trump's wishes in terms of her handling of the virus, and of course, I'll never forget the ultimate bootlicking where she gave him the miniature Mount Rushmore that had his face on it. And when she endorsed him, the things that she said, he is the father that our country need, all that just overzealous stuff that was stated on her part. And of course, with Lake, I mean, I can't think of any other candidate who more consistently repeated Trump's lie of the election being stolen than her. So all of them had some specific role that they carved out, to where we even earlier in this year had this reported feud between MTG and I think it was her and Lake that were going back and forth because they they both wanted to be Trump's running mates. And watching them implode was so I know, since most people don't follow this stuff, they don't see the rise and fall, right? But when you think about the fact that MTG, who's from Georgia, and Lake, who is from Arizona, both found a way to take time off from either campaigning or from being, just doing the duties of a sitting member of Congress, to go fly up there in the snow and campaign for Trump when he did not need them in New Hampshire. To see all that bootleg and all the TV appearances with, who could forget MTG's voice, President Trump, all that stuff. And it culminated in not a single one of them getting picked for VP. Instead of Trump picking one of these bootlickers, and we can go beyond the three of them, and we'll talk about the other ones in a second, but instead of him picking one of these three bootlickers who have spent years cozying up to him, I should say, he goes and picks a guy who compared him to one of the worst people in all of human history. Mr. Venture Capitalist himself, J.D. Vance. And I had one person who said that, Vance is a good pick and he's better than any of the women that Trump could have. I said, look, I don't believe that. I think Stefanik would have been fine. I think if Britt hadn't have given that lousy State of the Union response, she would have been good too. It's one of those things where those three in particular, I really believe, dropped the ball. I would consider just doing a video that shows the rise, this election cycle. It has either completely destroyed or severely derailed careers in ways that I have not seen from a single cycle, just from the whole time I've been following this stuff. DeSantis' star has fallen off, to where he almost feels like he's just quietly, he doesn't really talk that much. He's done a few interviews on Fox since then, but he, really just kind of sits around in his little, lovely state of Florida, waiting for his term to finish so he can go and hide under his wife's desk, who herself is rumored to be seeking to replace him in 2026. Which, I think if she wants to run and does run, she'll probably win. But that's, we'll have to wait and see. But he was the first star to fall, the first person whose career was really severely damaged by this election cycle. Haley is another one where, in her case, it's a little bit different because she never had polling that showed she was going to be the heir apparent to Trump the way that DeSantis did. But she was, along with Pence, one of the only cabinet members to run against him, one of the only people from his administration, I should say. And unlike Pence, there was a belief that, she was still in good standing with Trump. So when she ran against him, she forfeited any possibility of being a VP pick, right? Even though I truly believe she would have been probably his best VP pick of anyone besides Stefanik, because to me that would symbolize that he was trying to court those voters that thought he was too extreme. Which there, for her to get 4 million votes, there is a chunk of that party that is sick of him. But she ruined her chances of being his running mate. She ruined her chances of really having any political career after this cycle, right? South Carolina's not exactly feeling her. That's why she lost her home state. And the only thing she has left to do is just go on TV shows. And now she's doing some podcast apparently. And I don't know who the hell would want to listen to her for 2 hours a day, but it is what it is. So the two of them, right, DeSantis and Haley, hurt themselves the most. They're going to have to do some real damage control to pick themselves back up to run again in 28. Then when you look at MTG and Noam and Lake, they are a tale of what blind devotion to Trump gets you. Like when you think about Pence and how this is a guy who, was Trump's VP 4 years and serves him loyally all the way up until January 6th. And because he does something that Trump doesn't want him to do, his president shows no regard for his well-being, for his safety, for anything concerning him at all. And now he's excommunicated by his own party. They don't talk about him. They don't try to invite him to do anything with them. He wouldn't even endorse Trump after he won the primary. He's finished. For him to run for office again and be successful, it's going to take a long time, 10, 20 years. And I don't think he has that time. But with, Noam and Lake and MTG, I bring up Pence to say that, they saw what happened between Trump and Pence. And to Noam's credit, she's been at it longer than the other two. So I guess maybe that's where she kind of started thinking I'm better than they are, or at least I can. I guess that's what I'm so disturbed by, that they saw that the bootlicking for years does not matter if you don't loyally serve him to a fault. And they still felt like if they just kept bootlicking, if they just keep following him down into that toilet, right, then they're going to be able to carve out some better career for themselves. And it just didn't happen. They all self-imploded. Lake kept coming to Mar-a-Lago over and over again, just repeatedly, nonstop, to where Trump got sick of her. You're running for Senate in Arizona, but you're in Florida. Like what? MTG was getting into all these different spats and fights with other members of the House from her own party. She called Lauren Boebert to expletive and got kicked off the committee that she was on, I guess the caucus that she was in. And, Noam, what she did to herself should go down in history as one of the biggest cell phones of all time. You have a country where people love animals. People love dogs. They love cats. Some of us are even fond of bears and other, raccoons, all these other animals that can't be domesticated. And you thought it was a good idea to put out a book where you talk about putting down a baby dog. And the Noam one will never not be something because I said before, I'm not the biggest animal person. I had a dog when I was a little kid that I was really attached to. It ran away, and that made it to where I didn't want any more pets after, because I just didn't want to get so attached to one of them again. But I said, what's really sad is that Like when I read that story, I feel disgusted. I'm not even a big animal person, just because with animals, you have to, especially with the, we're not talking about some bear or some, you know, something that you couldn't domesticate, but with, dogs, cats, it's understood that by normal sane people that when they act out of control, when they bite up stuff, when they, you have to create parameters for them to not do these things. You have to set up barriers in your place where they can't jump over it. You have to, you know, discipline them to not, do these types of things. And the idea that you would end the life of a pet over chasing around your kids or what it was disgusting on her part. And Cricket got the last laugh when that book came out, and we found out that not only was she a dog killer, but she was also a serial liar, talking about she met with Kim Jong Un. Even though why the hell would the North Korean leader be meeting with the congresswoman from South Dakota? Like just nuts. But yeah, the three of them destroyed themselves. Noam the most embarrassingly, but still. And that set the stage for Trump to pick a guy who, like I said, I don't know what's going to happen during this cycle. I really don't. I lean towards Harris winning. If I had to make pick one over the other, who I like in my gut I thought could win. But again, it could go either way. I think it's too close to call. But with Vance, it will genuinely disgust me if that guy takes the reins as VP and is a heartbeat away from me. Because the thing about living in modern America is that we encourage, like in our feminist era, right, for women to be having careers, to be involved in all the different types of activities that men are involved in. And I don't necessarily have an issue with that, but it's so. I'm just saying that to mention that it is very apparent this is a period where people are having less children, people are prioritizing themselves and what they want to see from their own lives, and finding fulfillment in things beyond just having reproducing. And then you have this guy who scolds people for being childless cat ladies. It is just complete airheadedness. And I had one person who tried to defend him, and they were talking about, when you say something about the voters, you shouldn't insult them, but it's true that there are people. But I was, because I was like also when I did my video on it, offended by it, because I don't have any kids, so I guess I fall under that same umbrella. And this white knight tried to defend Vance by saying, "Oh, but he wasn't talking about you because you do want kids." And I said, "Well, suppose I didn't. What the hell's wrong with that? Like, why does everyone have to have the exact same, goal or life as another person? As long as they're not breaking any laws and getting up and contributing positively to society, what's the big deal?" I mean, he had the nerve to even insult the head of the teachers union for not having kids. It's just he has a weird hyper fixation on something that, like I said, those other people he could have picked, Tim Scott, the rest of them, they're not great either. But you would not see, especially Scott, because Scott doesn't have any kids, but you wouldn't see 90 something percent of the other people he could have picked saying anything crazy like that, at least about that topic. But yeah, we'll see if him and his venture capitalist crony can stake out a victory tomorrow, or in the next few days, potentially. But then on the Democratic side, I always have to explain that the way this goes is that Trump won the nomination for his party, then Biden won the nomination for his party, then Trump was attacked and was nominated a few days later, picked Vance as running mate. It looked like we were going to have Trump and Vance versus Biden Harris, and then the debate happened. And man, that debate needs to be preserved in a museum. It need, like, whenever they do the Trump presidential library and the Biden presidential library, because those are inevitable, they're going to be in New York and Delaware. They need to put that debate in both of them, have it where you can play it, have it where you can see the highlights. And that actually is one of the problems I have with these debates. They should be free public forums that you can download and do whatever you want with, right? Instead of things that CNN and these other crappy networks try to copyright strike you over. That is insane to me. Like it's really dangerous when, like, if they want to do that with interviews, okay, fine, whatever. But when you're talking about the two people who are, vying to be leader of the free world, and you're gonna make it to where when they speak to each other, I can't play the whole thing on my channel, or if I play some of it, it's too much, and that is just nuts to me. It's really disgusting on their part, and it's another problem with just the corporatization of everything. There's some stuff that should be free. Information is one of those things, and especially when it has to do with candidates. I mean, if we don't have these debates, a lot of people are not even going to know like just vaguely what these people stand. So it's really dangerous. Let me get a drink. But you have this debate, and to say Biden gave a career-ending performance would be an understatement. We beat Medicare. We're going to solve these problems. And it was, I can't even say it was bad. It was something beyond bad. It was dreadful. It was terrible. He looked and sounded like he was on death's door. And Democrats who for a whole year up to this point, who had their heads in their, what, finally said, hey, look, he's got to go. It started with a sprinkle, and as more and more days passed, that little snowflake turned into a snowball, and then that snowball turned into an even larger ball, and then a snowman, and then just a giant glacier. And finally, after weeks and weeks of fighting it, of trying to stay as the nominee, I'm not going anywhere. That Sunday back in July, when I got up, I was I'll never forget that day. I was scheduled to work, and I did go into work that day. I turned the computer on, and I see Joe Biden has withdrawn, and I saw the letter. I did the video on it. It was surprising, not because people had already predicted he was going to get out. I should say that they were predicting that he was going to win the primary for Harris because nobody wanted her to be the nominee. At least she couldn't get the nomination with votes. So he would win the primary for her and then drop out at the convention or before the convention. And their prediction came to pass. And I'll be the first one to admit, I didn't think that would happen because I thought Biden's ego would keep him wanting to stay as the nominee. This is someone who's wanted to be president for 40 years, if not longer, right? He first ran in 88. Damn, I just thought about it. I was like, that actually is 40. Jesus, so much time has passed. But I figured even if there were, he was having cognitive issues, even if he was being told he was too old, and a lot of people, myself included, thought he was too damn old, which really mainly has to do with the cognitive stuff. I just couldn't have imagined he was going to willfully step down. And it took a lot of pressure from congressmen. I don't think any senators called for it, but I could be wrong. From congressmen, from Obama, all these other people just getting together and getting him to step aside, be a one-termer. And Harris was then the presumptive nominee, nominated before the convention started by some voice vote crap. She had a selection of people she could have picked as her running mate. You had Mark Kelly, you had the horrible, awful, dreadful, nightmare-inducing governor of Pennsylvania, Josh Shapiro, and then you had Tim Walz, the Minnesota governor. And as much as I was dreading it, and as much as I was thinking she was going to pick Shapiro because she wants to win Pennsylvania, and she's trying to appeal to AIPAC and the rest of the Israeli government bootlicking crowd, she surprised me and picked Walz, which I maintain he is the best current governor in the United States. Of course, that's not a high bar, but still. But yeah, after doing that, she went around for a few months. She was criticized for not giving interviews. Um, and it was really funny because at the same time as she was not giving interviews, Trump just couldn't seem to get enough out of giving interviews. Right, he went up to that Black journalist convention and sat up there and lied and said that he did more for blacks than any president since Lincoln, which just made me want to vomit. Uh, but as he was sticking his foot more and more in his mouth, Harris was just, collecting her donations, and eventually she started giving interviews, and now she's been criticized for them. And that's why I said, well, a lot of this stuff, it really is damned if you do, damned if you don't, where you don't give interviews. So they say you're hiding in your basement or you're scared to talk to people. And then you give interviews and they say that you're like, oh, look at how bad her performance was. You just damned if you do, damned if you don't. But yeah, she gave some interviews at last, and they weren't winners. Not all of them anyway. Um, and over the past couple of weeks, we have seen this race tighten more and more. So it really comes down to a couple of states: Arizona, Pennsylvania, North Carolina, Georgia. I mean, I would say Florida, but Florida's done. Michigan, and some other one I'm not thinking of at the moment. But Michigan is an interesting one because people always talk trash about third parties. You're wasting your vote. Harris's refusal to either directly change U.S. Israeli policy, like to commit to trying to change it through, weapons embargo or, some other means that is more than just running her mouth, right? Just condemning the Israeli government with words, right, instead of actions. It possibly may come back to be a deciding factor in her inability to win this election, because there is a solid portion of voters in Michigan who really do not like the Israeli government and who are absolutely prepared to vote for Jill Stein if it means showing Harris that, yeah, you could have had our vote, but you decided to take the safe, middle of the road position on this topic. And if Harris can't win Michigan, it's going to be a lot harder to win the election. So she might have doomed herself with that one. Of course, I've always said the saddest part about U.S. politics is seeing politicians who are running for jobs where they're supposed to be leaders and they're afraid to take a stand on an issue. They're like really reluctant to just directly say, look, I'm for this, I'm against this. Because they're trying to please everybody, and when you aim to please everybody, oftentimes you please nobody. The pro-Israel people, the Mark Levins and Ted Cruz's and all the rest of them, they already think Harris is this Hamas-loving character, even though she's not. And the Palestinian people, right? When I say that, I'm referring to people that support Palestine. They don't think she's doing enough. So either way, because she's decided to take this middle of the road cowardly position, it could end up coming back to bite her in a significant manner, depending on what the results of Michigan are. Yeah, it's been just a really wild ride, and almost 2 years of it too. That last was it that week after the midterms, November 2022, all the way up until now. It's all been and it's so wild to think Trump announced before anyone else did and beat out all his opponents who came afterward. That's actually a trend I've noticed, where it seems like the people who announced the earliest, there's a trend where if they don't win, they come pretty damn close. Like I remember Cruz in 2016 announced before any of the other Republican candidates, even though he lost to Trump, who announced in June of that year of 2015 rather. He still came in second place. And then if you look at Trump in this cycle, right? He announces before any other major candidates and ends up being his party's nominee. So I guess that's the one thing we can take away from this. If you want to run and win, announce early. I guess with elections, there's always this thing where, and I saw this, of course, with my own, where it was like, you go through the weeks and months of just campaigning and if you're the candidate, that is, or just talking about the campaign, right? This, you travel over here, fly over there, say this, say that. And it almost gets to a point where you just, because the election season is so long, you just get used to perpetually, oh yeah, there's this election going on. Okay, but when is it going to end? Oh, in November, and then November, when the month finally comes, and it's time for people to actually vote. You're like, oh damn, I can't believe it's here. I mean, this race really felt like it was never going to end. It has been a wild ride. It wasn't even 4 months ago that we thought we were going to get the first presidential rematch since '56 with Eisenhower and Stevenson. And when Biden dropped out and he made it Trump versus Harris or Harris versus Trump, then we got our nice little surprise. But yeah, we can talk about a few of the first. I mean, if Trump wins, he'll be the second president ever after Grover Cleveland to get a non-consecutive second term. Vance will be the third youngest VP, if I remember correctly. Trump also has already made history as the first person to ever be nominated by a major party 3 times in a row. He's not the first Republican to get nominated 3 times. That was Nixon in 60, 68, and 72. But again, 3 times back to back is unheard of. That's why I've been saying that 2016, 2020, and then this year are they're the Trump trilogy. Just run for president every 4 years. Whether you win or lose, just keep running. I even had one relative who was saying that they believe he's going to run again in 28. I said, no. This is it. This is it. I mean, putting aside the obvious health issues that he'll have if, in 4 more years, which happens to all people as they get older, but it happens especially if you're like, 70s, 80s. The criminal charges and all the other legal stuff is going to be taking place in some cases, weeks or months after the election. So there really would be no time theoretically for him to just start plotting another campaign. And also, why would he? I mean, at least, like, if you lose in 2020, right, you can say, hey, you know what? If I come back this time, I can win. If you lose twice, I just don't think that any sane person would believe that he would try again for a fourth consecutive election. And then if Harris is able to pull out a victory, she'll be the first. I mean, I don't even have to say the first woman. That's everybody knows that. And then the crazy part is that apparently she's the first Westerner to be nominated by the Democrats ever, which is that is maddening to think about. Like I mentioned, that California really has been pimped out by both parties in the sense that we might have a congressional leader, like Pelosi, like McCarthy, right from California. But when it comes to just having a role in national politics, we have basically been turned into the state you go to raise money, and that's it. Like they never even consider. They have Republican congressmen from this state. They have the Democratic senators. They don't get considered for VP. They don't get considered for nothing. They just they were our only usage by what seems to be the rest of the national party, like the members from other states, is for them to just come here and get some coins and then go back to wherever they're from. But one thing I can say is that it looks like our luck might be changing because whether Harris wins or not, I think Newsom will eventually run for president. I can't see where he wouldn't. And of course, I hope that he loses because I think he is a weasel who has run this state into the ground, and I wouldn't want him anywhere near any further powers or getting a promotion. Schiff might run at some point. Again, he's another weasel, not as bad as Newsom, but that's not saying much. So we are seeing something of a resurgence where it looks like we're getting a new generation of politicians that are actually ambitious. Same thing with Garcetti, the former LA mayor. I didn't even get to mention that Walz would be I think, the third vice president from Minnesota after Humphrey and Mondale. Crazy to think I didn't even get to mention the debate between Trump and Harris, which was just maddening. I mean, they're eating the dogs. When you have a debate where the other person where you say something and it's so crazy and the other person there just laughs, that's all you need to know about like your chances and prospects. But yeah, we'll get the results coming in tomorrow afternoon or I guess evening, and of course I won't even be able to see it because my shift at work is going to be around like I'm going to get off around the time. It'll be during the shift that I'm at that the polls start closing. So about 2 hours into the polls closing when I start like right around when I get a break is when they'll people the vote totals will start coming in. Although I still don't think, again, if polling is anything to be believed, and I've always believed this would be a tight race. You might have a repeat of 2020 where a lot of the key battleground states are so close that they don't call them the first night, and then we just for the next like 2 or 3 days have to wait on the mail-in ballots. And I remember that debacle. Because there's been a lot of mail-in voting. That's what I ended up doing. I just, I normally don't have a problem just going somewhere, standing in line, getting because people don't vote anyway, so it usually doesn't take that long. But I decided to vote by mail because I had a relative who wanted to vote, but they're not as adept with filling out their forms. So I helped them with theirs, and then I took the things up there and mailed it. It was like last week before last week. They're elderly and they're not really able to walk that well, so that I was sympathetic towards them, even if I did have to alter the way I voted. And they actually at first thought that I took their ballot with me, and I was like, when I left, I was like, why would I take yours? And then they looked under some stuff and found it. So it was a little interesting episode. But man, I am looking forward to this thing being over. I feel like I can't go one day without hearing some news about this person traveled to Pennsylvania or Virginia or whatever. It's been a really chaotic and constant news cycle. Um, and again, the sad part about these elections is that they're so long, and the second one of them ends, they start getting ready for another one. So whoever wins will get like 1 year of stuff relating to them, like their actual tenure in office, and then we'll start hearing about the midterm, and then after the midterm, we'll start getting people announcing for 28. It's all just a repetitive cycle. But no, I will have the biggest smile if this can just finally get wrapped up. I had this one relative who was talking about voting for Trump. I said, go ahead. He's not going to win California anyway. And because a lot of these people don't seem to know what the electoral college is, I had to explain to them that their vote does not matter if your state so heavily favors one party over the other, where that party is winning by 10, 20, 30, even if they win by 1 point, your vote is not counted towards the vote of that state. Only the ones that voted for the side that won are counted. So it's just, oh boy. 2 years. Isn't it wild to think that we weren't even halfway through Biden's term before the talks of his next term or possible successor started, flowing in, and people were announcing. But yeah, I think anyone who's trying to call this is being goofy. I will say, probably a few days after the election, maybe a week from now, I'll try to see if I can make a compilation video of, one side saying they're going to win and we're going to clean their clock and all the rest of that stuff, because those predictions are always fun to go back and watch after it turns out to be complete crap. Like I remember there's a clip of Jeb Bush in 2012, and he's like, "I look forward to Mitt Romney's reelection campaign in 2016," and we saw how that turned out. That's why I said I try to not do predictions unless I'm really confident of it. Like I just don't see any other scenario but that one playing out. Like with the Arizona Senate race, I think Lake is toast. I think she's going to be defeated, and Gallego is going to cap that seat. That's based off polling. That's based off fundraising. It could, maybe a miracle could happen on her part, but I don't think so. Um, but as I usually don't speak that confidently unless I have stuff to back it. And with this race, as much as I want Trump to lose, I'm not going to sit there and look at polls that show him tying with Harris or leading Harris. Go, oh, yeah, it's over. No, I'm ready for anything to happen tomorrow. The one thing I wish would happen tomorrow is this damn cold weather goes away. It is freezing over here. I used to be able to lay down with 3 blankets and feel like warm enough to take one off. Now it is so cold that I can wrap myself in all 3 of them and still just like it's not enough. Like I have to. I'm about to damn near order another blanket. It is freezing, man. And most of the time in the afternoon, it's still relatively warm, like regular weather over here. But God, that morning is unbearable. Like I feel it right now. I feel well, not as much, but if I, don't have my coat on, it's like really apparent. Yeah, winter weather is not a joke. You will freeze into a block of ice so fast. My job is so weird. Your schedule has been let's see this. Ooh. No, I don't want to derail this, but I was just thinking about because there's my job's opening some other, I guess, location closer to me. And I saw where they have listings for someone to apply for their manager position, and it's apparently they make 24 an hour. And these shifts, I've seen them, they're about 8 hours each. Like they usually give the regular employees ever since they did a wage increase about 4 or 5 hours. And when I first started working there, it was like 6, 7, 8, but they want to pay people more money, so they give you these crappy half shifts. And I thought about it and I said, it's crazy how these guys can work for just 4 days a week, not even 5 days, right? 4 days. And with those 8-hour shifts, that is $800. So if they work 5 days a week, it's 1,000 or somewhere, something really close to it. And I was like, man, when you think about, working at this one place, um, Monday through Friday and getting shifts that are 8 hours long with a $20 or more wage, and then you work somewhere else on the weekend, and it is, like I said, I really despise the idea of having to possibly work every single day just to pay for basic living expenses or work 2 jobs in one day, which I also think is insane. But that extra money, man, it when you start seeing it roll in, it is a nice feeling. And I maintain what I said a few days ago about the whole thing with these relatives and how insane they tried to make me sound crazy for not wanting to put up with high cost of living, right? But I said it really just has to do with a simple equation. If I am only making a certain amount of money every month, every week, whatever, and the cost of stuff is going up, um, I am going to adjust to that situation in a way that is, that makes it to where I don't have to pay as much. I mean, that's just how it is. If that means, staying in a car or whatever, then that's what I have to do. I don't want to, but if the rent is too high, then there's only so much you can do. Like you can try to get a second job, and that's what I'm trying to do, but Uh, you know, I'm just saying you have to sometimes do things you'd rather not do just to not, lose all of your damn money on this overpriced crap. But like I said, it's an equation they don't understand because a lot of these people, from the time, like I said, they were in, they were like working to now 20, 30 years later, they still just have nothing. They think it's normal to just work every month for 40 hours a week, 30 hours a week, and all your money just vanishes, and you're, no, all every year just stays the same, no advancement, no growth. That's them. Like I said, man, people just don't think critically about. And my thing is, it's just sad. Yeah, I don't know why that guy typed that in the chat. I don't know. I literally said that before you showed up. I do not know who will win. I'm not predicting. Um, it is too close to call. That is that. I don't know. Some of the people on here are just so weird. Like they will watch you and then they'll stop watching you for some months, maybe even a whole year, and they'll just reappear and like I don't know what he does because I remember he came on another stream and he was like, maybe people that work at these jobs are not trying to have friendships. I'm like, yeah, you can say that, but I don't think that's true. So yeah, he just appears and writes something half baked. But yeah, I guess we'll have to keep our eyes glued to the TV because really, the way this is going to go is that if Harris wins, um, of course Trump will say that he didn't lose because same as it ever was. But she'll start naming different people to cabinet posts throughout November, the rest of November, all of December. And then on January 6th, there is the possibility that we'll have a sequel to what happened last time around. Um, Hopefully they'll be more prepared for it. If not, we're gonna have a big problem. And after that, we'll be able to put this whole insane campaign behind us with the new president at the helm, who, according to progressives, will be able to pressure into being more left leaning. I don't know. I did like the one segment on Jimmy's channel where I don't know why he had the guys from Do Dissonance as his host, and there was a lady uh, who is, she's part of the group of left leaning people in Michigan that are sick of Harris over the Israeli issue. And she said that Harris has become a cardboard cutout. What she said resonated with me so much. I just want to like clip what she said and then like have like a stop motion of the car of like Harris morphing into a cardboard, like going from a like physical person into the cardboard. Like as she's speaking, she just turns into the cardboard cutout. Oh man. Well, at least they gave me more hours than I thought I was gonna get. Still looking for a second job though. Mm. Oh man. Let's see who is in here. Oh damn! Everybody left the call after I went out of there. Interesting. I could have stayed for a little bit longer, but I said, let me get this. Let me just do this. Let's start our regularly scheduled program. No, the timing of that shift tomorrow is interesting because I'm wondering if they're going to talk about it at the job. Like I always have to remind myself that for a lot of people, they only really get registered with this stuff when it's happening or about to happen or whatever reaches its climax. So throughout the whole election cycle, they won't say jack. But then when it looks like we're going to have the when it's time for the actual voting to take place, then here they come all jumping. Oh man, who do you think is going to win? I'm going to go home and watch it right now. Managers on my job are so weird. They're posting schedules at 3 in the morning, 2 in the morning, 4 in the mornings. Oh my god, what is wrong with you guys? These are some very strange people. Oh, that's why. Okay. I was looking at this one video and I was like, where's all this activity coming from? Had to investigate. I was like, whoa, what's this? Oh. I will say this election cycle has been a real frustrating one if you're a progressive. Like you get stuck with Biden, who's pissed a lot of people off with his handling of the Israeli situation. And I mean, we can go even further than that, right? The whole I will implement public option, then nothing, and all the kowtowing to the lovely West Virginia Senator Joe Manchin on Build Back Better. We could just go down the list, but it's like you get stuck with him, and you're dissatisfied with all the supposed progressives in Congress are holding water with Bernie. Joe Biden has been the most progressive president in all of American history. And then he drops out because even they can't hide the fact that he just is not there anymore. Then Harris gets switched out for him, and her thing is that she, is chameleon. She's changed her positions every like couple of years, and they go right along with her too. And then when you have an actual progressive left-leaning person, first in the primary with Marianne Williamson, then you have another one in the general with Jill Stein. At each point, they're suppressed, or you're told that you're hurting party unity, or you're wasting your all this stupid stuff, man. I'm just trying to figure out which election cycle it's going to be where the progressives actually get to come out on top for once. Like rigged primary in 2016 with the Democrats doing their whole Bernie suppression stuff. Same thing in 2020, although not as organized at the start of it. And with this cycle, you had Williamson right in that primary, but Bernie didn't endorse her because he doesn't want to lose his access to Biden. Uh, then in the general, you have Jill Stein, who they won't they the closest we've seen to them addressing her is having AOC do some stupid video on social media where she called her predatory while she was like on the couch or whatever, and some Harris ad where she was saying that Trump had some clip of Trump admitting that he loves Stein because she takes votes from his opponents. It's just crap, man. Just bad. That's why I hope one day we'll be able to have a candidate that doesn't kowtow to generic Democrats and actually stands for something, and just like people you can get excited about. I don't know when that day will be, however. And that's why I always try to explain to people whether Harris or Trump wins, you're still going to see most Americans unable to afford $1,000 emergency, living paycheck to paycheck. Um, you know, they talk about inflation, but I don't believe any of them are actually going to change anything. It's sad because, like I said, Stein is the one I like the most. I think I wish a few things. I wish the U.S. had ranked choice voting. I think that would help a lot with this whole, you're wasting your vote lie the Democrats say. And I wish the media wasn't such a bench warmer for these two major parties. Because for as much as Stein was getting talked about, especially, with the whole like Michigan thing and the potential to destroy Harris's chances of winning if she gets enough votes over there. And even if she doesn't flip the state, if she's able to get more votes than Harris, that is going to send a hell of a message. It's really sad that you have these major networks, and we know the reason they do it, but it's like, yeah, there's other people running for president besides the Democrat and Republican. Shh, be very, very quiet. It really is anti-democracy that the biggest networks in America, the ones that are supposed to be the bread and butter, like when you want to know the news, you're supposed to turn one of these on, and they can't even talk about or interview or have anything to do with any of the people running for president except the ones on the major party tickets, and that is insane to me. But again, it's all part of the corporate duopoly and just like keeping an ignorant populace is easier to control than an informed one. Because trust me, if we had ranked choice voting and a media that actually gave all the candidates a fair shake, right? Multiple interviews, multiple debates, equal airtime, I think the Democrats and Republicans would be in for some deep hot water. Things would get rough for them real fast. So yeah, Stein was the best candidate. I would say the same thing about her in 2012 and 2016, at least out of the ones who make it to the general election. And I hope that someday she gets recognition for having good positions on most issues. And it's so funny to watch Obama, right, have talked about how the people who are not supporting Harris must have a problem with a woman being president. Like, no. Ironically enough, if we go through all of the election cycles from the first one I could vote in, which was 2016, to now, in each instance, I would say the best candidate was probably a woman, like at least again in the general election. So Jill Stein in 2016. I didn't like Hawkins as much as her, but I support him anyway over Biden and Trump. But probably Joe Jorgensen in 2020, and then Stein again in 2024. So I just think that's ironic that you got Obama talking about these men have a problem with the woman. It's like, no, no, no. We have a problem with a lady, with a candidate who happens to be a woman, who supports a genocide. And like at least when Trump says he's backing Israel, he doesn't try to tiptoe around the fact that if you support him, it's going to be like Netanyahu opening up a birthday present. Now, I was watching the Majority Report, and they were talking about how if someone supports, Palestine, right, or just is against the Israeli government's conflict, there's more reason for them to support Harris than Trump because she's more likely to be moved on the issue than Trump is, and that's why the Palestinian protesters don't even bother going to Trump rallies. I say, it's so sad that American politicians are more loyal to foreign governments than their own. Like when you think about how they tried to smear Stein as a Russian agent and she helped Trump defeat Hillary, it's like, man, you guys say that stuff and then you're bootlicking for this foreign country's government. Are you serious? Like just blatantly doing anything you can to support this foreign government over your own? And you want to call somebody else bought and paid for? It's all just so weird, man. But yeah, if I get my wish, which I probably won't, but put it out there. I'd say Harris would defeat Trump. I don't think it. I don't know if it'll happen or not. That's just what I would prefer. Um, I would want Allred to beat Cruz in Texas because I'm so sick of Cruz, the laziest senator in all of American history, with his 3 YouTube channels and his podcast. Uh, I think Lake is going to get beaten by Gallego, so I'm not going to say I hope. That's what I think will happen. They don't need me to hope for that one. Gallego seems to have that one wrapped up in the bag. I think the Democrats will probably retake the House. The Senate, in terms of them keeping it, is a mixed bag because it's possible, right? Because it's not that many seats. But I'm going to say that they lose it because I just think the Republicans have too strong a map in front of them. So yeah, that's what I think will happen for at least for congressional races. Democrats will get the House back, and they'll lose the Senate, and then we'll have a divided government where whoever wins will not be able to pass anything for 2 years, and then they'll say that we need to donate more to the DNC/RNC, and then after they get Congress fully, they'll still say they can't pass things because they don't have enough votes. Oh, the filibuster. Oh, whatever. That's the way this goes. It's really funny because I was thinking about how like when Trump, took office, had the House and the Senate, and then he lost the House, never had it again. But even when he had the House, he only passed, as far as I can remember from his tenure, one major bill, that tax cut. And besides that, he's mostly like the main stuff of his tenure is just executive orders and the Supreme Court justices. Like there's really very few legislative accomplishments on his part. Which I mean, he's not the only one like that, but still, I thought that was funny that 2 years of House and Senate and control under one party, and you guys only passed one major bill. Oh, yeah, you would count the First Step Act. You can. I don't think it was that big of a deal. Like it was supposed to be the first step, and they never followed up with any more steps. Yeah, I think today I'll probably. I have this one person I told them I was gonna go over their house in the afternoon. They called me pretty frantically yesterday. I got this stuff I want to pick up from the place I send my orders to, and that should be ready around the same time I go to see them. But if it's not by then, I'll just have to wait until tomorrow. I want to get it as soon as I can because I'm getting sick of this stuff over here. Um, but yeah, it's going to be a pretty interesting set of days. Going back to a job after a 3-day vacation and I was not expecting to be this tired. I guess I underestimated how sleepy I was. I do have this one job interview that they want to do at the times they gave me were 8:30 to 9 o'clock, 9 o'clock to 9:30, or 9:30 to 10 a.m. And I just was rolling my eyes. I'm like, man, how is it that the person who works late as hell at one place has to get up early in the morning and go to the other one? So I set it for the day I don't work on. Was that like Thursday? And what I'll do is I'll try to go to sleep early. You know, 1 o'clock, 12 o'clock, whatever. But if I can't, then I won't go. I won't lose any sleep over it either because, like I said, most of these places are not actually looking to hire anybody. They just want to sit there and waste your time. Oh, how are you? Tell us about yourself, person that we're gonna, sit here and pretend to be so invested in, and then do nothing to actually uh, employ or assist in any meaningful way. So yeah, it's not. I'm not going to lose any sleep over not being able to show up early as hell to that interview. Oh man. No, I know people love definitive predictions, but I just can't do it. Like I can say which states I think one person leans more toward having, where like I think Trump's going to win Arizona, probably Georgia. Harris, I'm inching towards believing she'll get North Carolina and maybe pick up Michigan. Like, even with that, I can't be definitive because it's just too close to call. That Iowa poll, though, that gave me a big spark of hope because that's a state that Obama won and Trump flipped. Um, so if she's able to pick that back up, then oh boy. But like I said, it is sad that the Democrats are not stronger in the South. Like they should have never allowed Florida to go red. Like I hope if they're able to pick up Texas again, or at least nudge it more and more towards being blue, they can do the same with Florida, Georgia, and North Carolina. Because none of those states should be so Republican that there's no chance for the Democrats to win. That is a showing of the failure of the politicians of that party in those states. You got O'Rourke in Texas losing every race that he's in. Oh, like he every 2 years running and losing in a different election. Uh, and of course, North Carolina has the main disgrace of the 2000s himself, John Edwards. It's so wild to think about how Florida went from being a state that Obama won and that the Democrats thought they were going to get the governorship of back in 2018 to now you can't, like, they don't even bother over there anymore. It's so insane. I hope that I'm forgetting the lady's name, but I hope she's able to beat Scott, but I don't think so. Which is sad because I think she'd be a hell of a lot better than he is. Mm. He's another do nothing governor. Or I guess, well, now he's a senator, but back when he was governor, I didn't like him either. But yeah, that's the prediction. That I have no prediction. I think some states are more obvious than others in terms of who's more likely to win them, but I'm not going to say one person will win or won't win because I genuinely don't know. I would prefer Harris to win, obviously, but I can't be definitive. All I'll say is that I'm pretty confident that after this election cycle, we're going to see some crazy protests, no matter who wins, and there will be some more election denying on the Republican side. You'll probably get, hmm. So it's going to be pretty similar to last time, where Trump won't put out a statement like saying, I concede or call Harris at all. He'll skip out on, just like doing any of the basic stuff that they're supposed to do, right? And he'll go in his little bunker and fume and tell himself that he won in the mirror over and over. That's what I think he'll do. But these campaigns are they've been a ride. Trump has said a lot of stupid stuff, things I don't believe have helped him at all. And likewise, Harris has done things I don't get either. Right, the whole backing Israel no matter what, and uh, just a lot of the rhetoric that she uses. I will say one thing she's done that Hillary did do, which I'm glad she's avoided, is like talking about her gender. She doesn't really invoke her gender or ethnicity that much at all, which I do appreciate because I think politicians that could be the first whatever are better off when they just don't say that they will be. I think it's one of those things where it's like people can tell that you're this race or this whatever, so just shut up about it. We'll celebrate it if you win, and if you don't, well, I guess all that hoopla over if this person's elected, they'll be the first, enter box here. It didn't really matter. Mm. But yeah, over the next few days, hopefully we'll know who won this thing. In the meantime, I'm gonna try to make some more of my edited videos, including the Nixon documentary part 3, and still go out of my way to try and find a second job, which is about as easy as sneezing with my eyes open. So I will be back next Saturday, at which point we will most certainly know who won this day. I don't think it's going to be like 2000 where it stretches out for a whole damn month or whatever. But like I said, the biggest sadness of this cycle has been that there have been interesting and better candidates on both sides that we didn't get to have. And that is genuinely a tragic thing to me that so many alternatives and options, and we ended up with a convicted criminal and a lady who didn't even win her primary to get nominated. Like, it's just that part of it is lame. I'm not making any just attempts at hiding that. American democracy can sometimes really make you feel like there is no democracy. But like I said, at least there's always 4 years from now. So thanks for listening and have a good rest of your Monday.